Professor Penna has been awarded with Yuva Vipashchit
Paschit.
Sanskrit Pandit Satwalekar Puraskar, Pandit Latkar Award, and Somnath Trust Gold Medal Awards, and other awards as such. So here I once again welcome Professor Madhusudan Penna to please deliver his today's
Yeah.
session on Gorakhnath Yoga. Dhanyawad, Penna Sarji,
Dhanyawad,
and welcome.
Dhanyawad sir,
Over to
welcome
you.
to you sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jagadish sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. So again, we have met
Yes, yes,
after some time. With some gap, we have met again.
yes,
So I welcome and congratulate all the participants because they have made this evening a very memorable one. Of course, you have made it because through this lecture, we will be getting into the great, glorious life of Gorakhnath. And actually, I sometimes get surprised that Gorakhnath is not an individual. There was a particular time period when Gorakhnath was a history, a wave, a tsunami-like wave, because he influenced throughout India, in Nepal, and in other countries also, many people. And because of him only, Bharat had got a different picture altogether. So if we just look into past, after Shankaracharya, perhaps Gorakhnath was the only person who had exerted a lot of influence on almost all the regions. And that's why even today, if we see, it may be in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa, Bengal, Assam, even Uttar Pradesh, anywhere you see at least one particular mutt devoted to Gorakhnath. So thus Gorakhnath has become a history, and today we are very happy, fortunate that we have got a time to brood over his life and philosophy. And there is a lot that we can learn from his personal life and his teachings also. Because Gorakhnath was not a monk or ascetic of that type who had practiced for himself but did not share with others. He is not a yogi of that kind. Gorakhnath had visited many places, visited many people, influenced many people, and he himself composed many works in Hindi and Sanskrit. So that's why we have got a good amount of knowledge on the Shat Chakra, Panchakosha, and making the body into a very powerful instrument to experience the great moments of yoga, that is samadhi, everything. So we have got a lot of information about his life, about his philosophy also. So today I would like to first discuss with you the Natha tradition. See, when we are talking about Gorakhnath, naturally we get interest in knowing about the Natha tradition. And you know, the Natha tradition is very old because we find in that Natha is a synonym for Siddha. And in the Natha tradition, they believe that another common word that can come closer to this is Avadhuta. So you may call Natha or Avadhuta or Siddha. All these stand for one individual who has uh, achieved, or who is an accomplished yogi. He is Natha. And it is actually a stage between the sadhaka and siddha. So siddha, if he is Natha, so it is actually from sadhaka he is going to that. But I would like to tell you all that we are all sadhaka because we are on the path of yoga. We are actually treading on the path, while there are individuals who have come onto this earth with all the accomplished state of yoga. So they are accomplished persons. So therefore, they are not sadhaka in this birth, in which they appeared on this earth, they are not sadhaka, they are siddha. So this siddha is known as natha. And the word natha comes from the Sanskrit root natru, nathate, which means one who begs. But actually, these people do not beg. Other people beg so many things from them. So who are these natha? They are actually the Lord, from whom other people seek something, learn something, and get something. So therefore, these are the natha. And that's why the in the natha tradition, lot of importance is given to the guru. Even in the life of Jnaneshwar Maharaj, you can see that it's very conspicuous there. So that's natha. And in Gorakh Siddhanta Sangraha also, you have a shloka where the natha has been split into two parts, like na atha. Na nakaraha anadi rupam, they say. In the Gorakh Siddhanta Sangraha, they say nakaraha anadi rupam. That means na is negative. That is the prohibitive particle. What does it signify? It signifies the prohibition or the negation of all that. Anadi rupam. So that na stands for that. Then atha. Athakaraha sthapyate sada. Atha is the beginning. So something which is anadi, beginningless, but which has appeared. So that is known as natha. And there is another also, Srinatha iti kathyate. Somewhere it is stated Srinatha, because Shri mokshadana dakshatvat natha brahmanubodhanat. So brahmanubhava, that means the individual or the teacher, whoever gives us the glimpse of the great experience of Brahma, is known as natha. And thus the natha sampradaya has come into existence. And in the olden days, if you look back, there were days when the Buddhism, especially the Vajrayana, Vajrayana was very strong. And there was Mimamsa system, there was Advaita system. And all these systems were very powerful in India. And at that particular time, an amalgamation of all these systems had taken place. And that particular amalgamation is known as Natha. So it was not a new movement, but you can say that it was an evolutionary phase of a very old Siddha tradition of India. A very old Siddha tradition. You find their evolutionary phase because it combined the ideas from Tantra, because we find in Natha the Mahayana Tantra, the Vajrayana Tantra. So all these Tantra streams also entered into the Natha. And Shaivism, especially the Kashmira Shaiva and Veera Shaiva from Karnataka, they also had found a place in this Natha. And of course, Yoga of Patanjali and Hatha Yoga and Buddhism, all these have found a comfortable place in the Natha tradition. And that's why you find in the Skanda Purana, Padma Purana, Bhagavata, you find references to Natha tradition. You find references to the Natha teachers also. So thus, the Natha tradition is very, very popular, and it has accommodated all these streams of philosophy and especially practical yoga traditions. And thus we find in the Matsya Purana some references, and in Maharashtra, in Telugu also, Navanatha Charitam, Navanatha Sara, Navanathamritam, etc. books are available, and they throw light on the known, unknown secrets of Natha tradition. And when it comes to the identity of Natha, we find that the Natha attire is that they wear loincloths and dhoti like that, and they cover themselves with all ashes. They anoint their body with all the ashes, because the ash is symbolic thing of Shankara, Bhasma. So naturally, only to remember Shankara all the while. They anoint besmear their body with all the ashes, and they tie up their locked hairs. So the matted hairs, they lock it out, they cover up, and the dreadlocks are there, and they keep always with them a sacred fire called Dhuni. Like as in the life of Gajanan Maharaj, Shirdi Sai Baba, and many Avadhuta in Andhra also, Kadapa. So we find a Dhuni lit with them. So thus the Natha Sadhu, they keep a sacred fire called Dhuni with them, and they offer offerings into the Dhuni. And especially when we take the name of Gorakhnath, we take the name of Matsyendranath, we take the name of Gahninath, we take the name of Meenanath, we take the name of Chauranginath. So these are all great Natha. So naturally a question arises, how many Nathas were there? So generally the tradition starts with Adinatha. But unfortunately, because of several other traditions that which have percolated into the Nepali history also, we have the Navanatha names different. Different names are given. You don't find same account in all the places. But though there are many traditions, the most popular Natha tradition as found in the Navanatha Sara that records the names that does not start with Adinatha but starts with Matsyendranath. So Matsyendranath, then his direct disciple who was along with him, contemporary, was Gorakhnath, Gorakshanath. And Gorakshanatha initiated few people. So one the Jalandharnatha, but in another account, Jalandharnatha was teacher of Matsyendranath. That is the paradigm there. That is the problem. And then there was Kanhoba, or you can say Khanifnatha. Khanifnatha was also there. And there was Gahninatha, who was the teacher of Nivrittinatha. That is elder brother of Jnanadev Maharaj. And this Gahninatha, he was known as Gaibi Pier, Gaibi Sannyasi also. And Bhartruhari was also initiated into sannyasa, and his name was Bhartrunatha. And there was another Ravalnatha or Revanath, he was also there. Then there was Charpatinatha, and Chauranginatha was also there. Then lastly Naganatha, or you can say Nageshnatha. So this way, starting with Matsyendranath, Gorakhnatha, we have the tradition, and all the Navanatha till this Nagesha or Naganatha. So thus Navanatha are very famous in our Hindu tradition, and they have actually spread the sacred knowledge, the secret knowledge of Natha tradition. And in this particular tradition only, we find the two streams. One is the stream of Matsyendranath, and another is the stream of Jalandharnath. Because Matsyendranath tradition continued through Gorakhnath and others, while Jalandharnath tradition that continued through Gopinatha or Gopi Chandra, you can say, but it could not survive. But while Matsyendranath, he had a very able disciple in the form of Gorakhnath. So that's why the great tradition of Matsyendranath could continue with Gorakhnath. And in the same lineage, you find Charpatnath, Meenanath, Chauranginath also. And from Gorakhnath, there was a disciple, Gahninath, and Gahninath initiated Nivrittinath, elder brother of Jnanadev Maharaj. And Jnanadev Maharaj has also made frequent references to Nivrittinath and Gahninath. And thus, this is a great Natha tradition. And from Jnanadev Maharaj, Jnananatha, the Gulabrao Maharaj also got inspiration, and he also got initiated into Natha tradition as Panduranganath. So we find the same Natha Sampradaya, and some people say even our Tukudoji Maharaj belonged to Natha tradition. Thus we find the Matsyendranath tradition and Jalandharnath tradition. And in this Gorakhnath tradition, you have Gahninath, Naganath, and this Bhartruhari got initiated, Bhartruhari, Bhartrunath, and Maniknath also. And from Gahininath, of course, you know that Nivruttinath and Jnananatha came. And thus, from about 10th century to the 18th century, you have so many Natha teachers. But the Nepali tradition has got a different account to provide, because it says the Shanta Rakshita was the original preceptor. Because in the Buddhism, you have Shanta Rakshita. Actually, he met with an accident and he died. There is an account in the Buddha tradition also that Shantarakshita, who belonged to 7th century, he had written Tattva Sangraha. It is very famous in Indian philosophy. Tattva Sangraha is very famous. And he initiated Haribhadra. And that Haribhadra initiated Sarah Pada. And an account says that Sarah Pada, who belonged to 9th century, he actually was the teacher of Matsyendranatha, and that Matsyendranatha belonged to 9th, 10th century, and he had initiated Gorakhnatha, who belonged to the same tradition. So this is an account that Natha Parampara, it started with Shantarakshita and it continued with Gorakhnatha. But there is another tradition which says that Sarahapada was the first person who initiated Shabar and Luipa, that Tibetan culture, then Dharikapa, because there are so many teachers in the tradition who belong to Natha Sampradaya, but they have Tibetan names. And Dharikapa, he had a disciple as Gorakshnath. So in all these accounts, one thing is unchanged, that Goraknath belonged to the 10th, 11th century, almost 11th century. So that is very famous. And that's why this Goraknath initiating Gahininath and that Gahininath initiating Nivruttinath is not very contradictable. It is believable that Jnaneshwar Maharaj, his elder brother Nivruttinath, they got initiated by Gahininath, and Gahininath was a direct disciple of Goraknath, and Goraknath learnt all the techniques from his teacher Matsyendranath. So this is one important tradition we find. And here their philosophy is very, very simple, that human existence is a psychochemical process. You know that the chemicals that take place in the body, because all the glands, they secrete chemicals, and through them only actually all this body functions physiologically, but psychologically also these chemicals have got a very vital role to play. And these the human existence as such is nothing but such process, and this process can be perfected by a right combination of psychological, alchemy, and physical techniques. So this is actually, as I told you, a very good synthetic approach towards human existence, that you can combine all these three, the physical, psychological, and alchemy. So all the three. That's why the Natha tradition teachers have laid emphasis on Hatha Yoga on one side, Ayurveda on the other side, the Rasayana Shastra, and the Dhyana Yoga also. But later we find a kind of inclination towards the Dhyana rather than on perfecting the body. So that's why the Natha tradition in the later phase that focused more on perfecting the body and mind and achieving the higher target of yoga in this birth, in this body. So that is very important in the Natha tradition. And the philosophy is that liberation while being alive. This is the philosophy of Natha tradition, that you can achieve liberation while being alive. It's not that you die, then only you will get liberation. No. In this birth itself, you can experience, provided you have all the guts and determination and detachment. Without detachment, it is not at all possible in this Natha tradition. That's why in the Goraksha Siddha Siddhanta, he very meticulously tells us, see, if you lay down yourself for your senses and yield to the desires, you cannot expect the higher goal of yoga, because yoga is not something that can be shared verbally, but yoga is that which you have to experience and raise yourself. This is the only life you have. And people unnecessarily and unfortunately postpone. They say that if it is written in our bhagya, I'll definitely get it. So I need not work for that. I need not toil for that. I need not exert myself. So that is the most unfortunate thing. But in the Natha tradition, they say, as we are going to see, that they're very particular. They say, you are in this body, this movement is real. So therefore, you exert, you try and raise yourself to the higher level of yoga. And that paramukti is also possible, a state of liberation in the current life and to divine state after death also. So that's why they don't postpone everything for rebirth, because in every birth, if you postpone like that, when will you get liberation? When will you lead yourself towards perfection? It will not be possible. That's why this is the birth, no rebirth, no duality. There is no duality at all in this. Everyone is accepted. Every caste, creed, religion, gender, everything is accepted. No difference is maintained. And absolute idealism is also not accepted, because importance is given to the body. Importance is given to the practice. So therefore, absolute idealism as propounded by Adi Shankaracharya is also not at all acceptable in the system. But an absolute immersion in the reality, that is the Shiva Tattva, that is accepted. Because basically the Natha teachers are Shaivite till Jnaneshwar Maharaj. But Nivritti Natha Maharaj, he had made a very fine amalgamation of the Shiva and Vishnu, that Jnaneshwar Maharaj himself got transformed into the Panduranga Bhakta, that Vaishnavite. But he never kept the difference. He never maintained that Shiva is higher or Vishnu is higher. That difference is not there. It is an Advaita. And Matsyendranath, who belonged to the 10th century, very typically, he is revered, worshipped, respected by Hindus as well as Buddhists. And in Buddhism, this Matsyendranath is revered and worshipped as an incarnation of Avalokiteshvara in their tradition. And in Hindu tradition, of course, he is believed to be an incarnation of Narayana. But it is only poetical, because in some texts I found that Matsyendranath is incarnation of Vishnu and Gorakhnath is incarnation of Shiva. That story is also there. And there is a typical story about the birth of Matsyendranath, that when he was born, he was almost motionless. That's why his parents lost all hopes. And finally, they had thrown him into an ocean. And in that ocean, a fish actually swallowed him. And for 12 years, that fish only looked after him. And he grew up in the stomach of that fish. And when Parvati asked Parameshwara the secret of his bliss, then Parameshwara wanted to teach that secret, and he had taken Parvati to the shore of a seashore, and there he was explaining all the secret to Parvati. And at that particular moment, the Matsya, the fish, also was there, and that Matsyendranath was listening to all the secret of this. And from the stomach only, he was replying, he was replying, responding to the teaching. So Lord Shiva, he got compassionate, and he looked at the Matsya, and he named that boy as Matsyendranatha. So people say that Lord Shiva only gave that name. But some people say that Gorakhnath called him Matsyendranath. So whatever may be the story. But because of his connection with the Matsya, he was known as Matsyendranath, and his son was Meenanatha. That's a later story. And there is another story that he was born in an inauspicious star, some Ashubha Nakshatra. So that's why he was to be abandoned. And when he was abandoned, a Matsya took care of him, and afterwards he emerged as Matsyendranath. So this is the story of Matsyendranath. But later we know that he, according to another story, he was born from the ashes like Gorakhnath also. That is also a story. But he got the darshan of Maruti at Rameshwar, Setubandha, and from Rameshwar he went to Dwaraka. From Dwaraka he went to Ayodhya, and in between actually he met one couple, and he blessed the couple with a boon that they would get a boy, and he simply went to Ayodhya. But meanwhile, what happened, that particular he gave some ashes to the couple, and the couple, they threw the ashes outside into a dung. And after 12 years, they forgot, because they wanted a son, and Matsyendranath gave the ashes. They did not believe, some reason was there, and they threw away the ashes onto the cow dung outside. And Matsyendranath simply left and went to Ayodhya. But after 12 years he returned, and asked the couple, what happened, where is my boy? Then the couple, shivering, they said, sorry Swamiji, we just threw away the ashes. Where? He said. They had shown the cow dung. And immediately Matsyendranath took out the water from his kamandalu, and he poured the water onto the dung and said, Gorak, mera beta, come out. Then from the cow dung, that Gorakhnath emerged. And that's why he was given the name Goraksha, Gorakhnath. So he was the first disciple of Matsyendranath, this Gorakhnath. And later we find that this Gorakhnath, actually, according to this particular story, he belonged to Gujarat. But equal stories are there that Gorakhnath belonged to Bengal, Nepal, Kashmir, Karnataka also, because in Karnataka there is a temple. And very typically, Nepali people also claim that originally he belonged to Nepal. And nowadays people are there who claim that Rama, Krishna, Jnaneshwar, everybody belonged to Nepal. Such false claims are also there. And he was born on Kartika Masa, that is Shuddha Trayodashi, that is Friday. And Gorakhnath Nakshatra is stated to be Revati Nakshatra. And his parents were Saraswati and Sarvopadaya. And somewhere it is stated that they were Gauda Brahmins in Chandragiri. This is also stated. And this Gorakhnath was very handsome. In this particular account, there is no contradiction at all. All the texts say that he was a very handsome, bright man, carrying the spiritual glow on his face, and he was admired everywhere, wherever he went. And Navanatha Bhaktisara, there is a text which says that Gorakhnath was born to Chandragiri king and his wife, and he was born from the ashes. And there is another text, Nathalilamrita, which says that Gorakhnath was born from fire. And the name was given by Matsyendranath, as I told you. And Matsyendranath, he called him, Hey Harinarayana, Pratapavanta Tari Gorakh Ase Tute Nava. So he said, and then Gorakhnath emerged. And immediately after that, Gorakhnath followed his teacher and traveled extensively across India, that he did not stick to one place, but he had acquired knowledge of almost all the Shastras from his teacher, Matsyendranath. And all the Vidya, like Shabari Vidya, Sahitya, Rasayana, Vyakarana, Jyotisha, Veda, Sangeeta, Betala Vidya, Shabari Vidya, Ashtabhairava Vidya, Yakshini Vidya. So from Tantra, from classical Sanskrit, he studied everything, learnt everything, mastered everything, and he championed in Kaula Tantra, Yoga, Vedanta, because he was a perfect soul. He mastered everything. And there is a story that when he was in Kolhapur, he was in deep meditation, and he made his jhola, that means the alms bag, to move around in the streets of Brahmins and get the begged food. So that joli was just making rounds, and Goraknath was just sitting and contemplating, just in the deep samadhi. Then Dattatreya, it is a story, Dattatreya wanted to test, and that's why he simply held the bag, the alms bag, he held it. Then Goraknath was surprised, and he opened his eyes and saw his bag did not return. Then he knew that Dattatreya was there, and he approached Dattatreya and prostrated, and he learned so many things from Dattatreya also. So that story is also very popular, and he got Dattatreya Darshana in Kashi also, and from that only he experienced all high states of samadhi, whatever are described in the yoga text. So he was not just explaining, but he experienced all the great states of samadhi. And once it so happened in Karad, when he was in Karad, he was actually moving around in the street, and he happened to see a merchant who was actually selling away the goods, and he was selling away some kind of alcoholic substance. Then Goraknath asked him, "Give me that." Then the merchant replied, "Yes, if you have the paisa, if you have that, I'll give you." Then Goraknath said, "Whatever I have, I'll give you, and you will never ask." And immediately he put his hand on the head of that merchant, and instantly the merchant just slipped into deep state of samadhi. And somebody looking around ran to the house of that merchant and told his sister that some khanif, that person came here, and he had simply looted everything. Then that sister, she ran to the shop and requested, she actually beseeched that Goraknath, please let him come back. Then Goraknath simply left him, and that person came. This happened in Karad. And after that particular one, that merchant also became a direct disciple of Goraknath. And after that, from Karad, Goraknath went to Ujjain. And from actually in Ujjain also, it so happened that the king, local king, had a wife. And that lady, as the story goes, Padmavati or somebody, and she was very, very beautiful. And it so happened that when Goraknath went to that place, she died, and the king was lamenting like anything. And Goraknath looked at him and simply took 2 earthen pots, kumbha, and he dropped them. And when they are broken, he also started crying loudly. Then Raja asked him, "What happened?" Then he said, "My 2 earthen pots are broken. I am crying." Then he said, "Are, if earthen pot is broken, why should you cry?" Then he said, "Yes, similarly, when the body is lost, why should you cry?" So that way he taught, and he initiated the king Bhartruhari as Bhartrunatha. And from Ujjain, he went to Bengal, and there also he made few disciples. And there, from Bengal, he left for Simhala, that Sri Lanka. And actually, this particular period of Goraknath is very important, because in Simhala, as the story goes, that Matsyendranatha was held up somewhere. He was in the, according to one story, it was in Bengal. According to another story, it was in Simhala. But he entered into the kingdom of ladies, and the queen just brought him into the palace, and she was actually fascinated by his beauty, that she married, and Matsyendranatha got married, and he stayed there several years there, and he had a son also, and he forgot all the Natha and all spiritual enlightenment, he forgot. And then he actually that Chauranginath, he informed Gorakhnath, and Gorakhnath from Bengal went to Simhala, met Matsyendranath, and he said, Alak. And after hearing that only, that king, that is Matsyendranath, he came back to senses. And after that, both of them left the place, and according to story, they went to Lahore. But okay, whether it is the same Lahore or any other place with the same name, we don't know. And then they went to Shirale village, then they came to Pandharpur also. And from Pandharpur, they traveled extensively and they blessed many people. They imparted the sacred knowledge of all the Natha Yoga. And after that, actually in this particular stage, what happened, when they were leaving the Simhala, that Matsyendranath along with his son Meenanath, they came and they were traveling, and that Rani, that queen, dropped a golden brick in the joli of this Matsyendranath. And Matsyendranath also came to the jungle, and when they were all resting, simply Gorakhnath removed that and he had thrown that into the water. Then Matsyendranath started, actually he felt very sad for that. Then Gorakhnath is stated to have created a big mountain of gold, that is Kanakachala. And as per one story, all of them, that means Matsyendranath, Gorakhnath and Chauranganath, actually Gahininath, they all took samadhi on that mountain and disappeared. So that is a story. And he practiced penance in the Badrikashram, and then he went to Saurashtra, that is Gujarat, then to Godavari also, that is Nashik, and then Hatakeshwari he went there, and in the Vijayanagara kingdom, so he initiated a king as Vijayanath, established the Gorakhpur city, Uttar Pradesh, and went to other places. And he went to Pushkar, then Gokarna, Kashi, Karad, and he actually brought out his master from the snare of a lady. When he was in the clutches of a lady, this Gorakhnath only taught the reality to his master and brought him back. And for his teacher, he plucked his own eyes and had given to the lady for food, it is said. And he made a clay doll and gave life to it and named that as Gahininath. And when he was to purify Meenanath, he had literally brought everything out and cleaned and put back in him. So many miracles are attached with the life of Gorakhnath. And when he was in the Srisailam, that is Andhra Pradesh, one Allam Das was there, and that Allam Das had taken sword and cut Gorakhnath's body into pieces. But he had the Vajrasiddhi, that's why he was born again. This is also a story. And so many such stories are there. But one thing we are certain, that Gorakhnath was a very far-sighted yogi, that he had written almost 40 books for the next generations. Among them, Siddha Siddhanta Sangraha, Gorakh Shataka, Gorakh Vani in Hindi, Amanaska, that is Amanaska Yoga. And there is one book, Amarogha Prabodha. Amarogha Prabodha is a very popular book, and Goraksha Paddhati is also very, very popular in Gorakh tradition. And Jnana Shataka is there. And of course, Gorakhnath Samhita is also there. And there are so many other books like Mahartha Manjari also. And in all these books, when I studied them, I am so fascinated by the profundity of his knowledge, that he tried to make a very clear, fine synthesis among several streams like Dvaita and Advaita. The controversies he has very systematically reconciled with. And he said, these controversies are useless from practice point of view. Because when you have to experience the higher consciousness of yoga, all these verbal jugglery is useless. But the yogi has to make a choice whether to go after all the Shastra and make verbose presentation of the reality, or should he merge into the great experiences of the spirituality. So that the choice he has to make. spiritual discipline and regular practice that leads to perfectly illumined samadhi state of individual consciousness. So we can raise ourselves, and that consciousness we can reach through two things. One is spiritual discipline and practice. And he himself had great respect, though he was a very perfect brahmachari, true celibate, but still he had great respect for women, especially in Simhala, when that queen addressed him and she had shown all the beauty. When the cloth was also dropped, Goraknath was not at all influenced by that, not all moved. And he treated her as mother. That's why later that lady considered him as her own son. And that's why later he opened his system for all the people, all caste, creed, everything, religion also. Because in this Natha tradition we find Muslim Nathas also. And even what Goraknath wants to tell us, that whatever is at the macro level is available in the micro level, that is expressing itself in two ways. So therefore Brahmanda and Pindanda ultimately are one. The reality is one and should be realized when in this birth, in this body. And for that, no more verbal presentation, no more simple external superfluous things, but absolute immersion into ourselves. That's very important. And we can reach the state of Swayam. Goraknath calls that particular state as Parapara. Beyond that, that is Swayam state. And we can reach that particular state which is known as Turiya in the Mandukya Upanishad also, so that we can reach it. And for that, like Trimurti, we have three paths. One is the path of yoga, other is path of jnana, and other is path of bhakti. Very typically, you find a very comfortable place for bhakti in the tradition of Goraknath, because Goraknath realized that bhakti cannot be separated from jnana, nor can it be separated from yoga. But unfortunately, people misunderstand that bhakti is meant for dullards. Only the people who have dull mind, they prefer bhakti because they cannot use their intellect. But high intellectuals, they go for jnana. It is rubbish, because high intellectuals only go for bhakti. That is the secret of bhakti. And Goraknath, he had presented this kind of a very perfect synthesis through his works and life, that bhakti is also combined with jnana and yoga. So therefore, these three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, these three stand for three important spiritual paths. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. And Vishnu is for bhakti. Jnana, Rudra, Shiva is for jnana, and Brahma is for yoga. So that kind of synthesis you find here. And therefore, through these three, that means making a very fine combination of all the three, you can achieve liberation. It's not for the sake of lecture I'm telling you, but it is practical. That you practice yoga, you get jnana. And you get that kind of jnana that you automatically become a bhakta. Very typical, but it is practical. That's why you observe in the lives of all the great saints, Shankaracharya, Govinda Bhagavad Pada, his teacher Gaudapada, Shuka Maharshi, Vyasa Maharshi, and down, you take anybody, Vachaspati Mishra, Madhusudan Saraswati, or you take Vallabhacharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Chaitanya, Vishnu Swami, take anybody, any name. One common thing is that they are all devotees, bhakta. And where is the difference? That is only philosophical. They have philosophical differences. But when it comes to devotion, when it comes to bhakti, they are all one. The object of devotion may be different sometimes, Some may prefer Vishnu, some may prefer Narayana, some may prefer Rama, some may prefer Krishna. But ultimately, the devotion is the force, is the energy that takes us to the higher level that Gorakhnath also had preached and practiced. And for that, you require a qualified guru. Like Gorakhnath himself got Matsyendranath. Otherwise, it was not possible. But Matsyendranath was so fortunate that he had directly got a great guru in the form of Lord Shiva. Jagat Guru, Paramaguru. Sa purveshamopi guruhu kalena navachchedat. So that Paramaguru himself taught him everything. But we are all not that fortunate. So that's why Gorakhnath had got the knowledge from Matsyendranath, and Gahaninath got that from Gorakhnath, Nivrittinath got that from Gahaninath. So this is the tradition, and Jnaneshwar Maharaj was very, very, very fortunate that he had the treasure of knowledge, the Jnana Nidhi, in the form of his brother Nivrittinatha. So what else to say? That Nivrittinatha directly bestowed upon him all the nectar of yoga that he himself had poured the essence of yoga into Jnaneshwar Maharaj, that Jnaneshwar Maharaj finds it very difficult to control himself while he was delivering the lecture on the Bhagavad Gita in the form of Jnaneshwar, that every moment, every time he says, Nivrittinatha Dasa, he doesn't say I am Jnaneshwar, he says, I am Nivrittinatha Dasa, and you command me and I execute. So that a great disciple was Jnaneshwar Maharaj, and we all are fortunate that we have a great preceptor or the teacher in the form of Jnanadev Maharaj. And he has been blessing so many souls on the path of the spiritual life. And this Gorakhnath said that qualified guru is must if you really want to experience higher consciousness. Unfortunately, we are deprived of the benefit. We are deprived of the joy of experiencing higher consciousness because our consciousness is just pulled down to the lower level. And we always think about our body, our emotions, our life, profession, only these things. That's why we can never expect raising ourselves to the higher level. But if you find a qualified guru, you will definitely raise yourself. So thus, Gorakhnath has presented to us a very beautiful combination of jnana, bhakti, and yoga, and hatha yoga, the jnana yoga of Shankara, hatha yoga, and very good combination. And he preached pranayama, but with brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is very important. But a gruhastha or householder can also practice yoga, but it will take long time. If a householder practices brahmacharya in a strict order, he can also practice yoga, and he or she is also eligible if he or she has control over senses and very pure chaste lifestyle and vairagya towards worldly things is very must. But you understand that the body is the tool given to us. The body should be perfect. Don't over torture in the name of hatha yoga. Don't over torture. Keep it healthy, that's all. And because this body is the place of that God, and gradually we should channelize our all psychological forces and make this body an abode of God. So this is possible. That's why somewhere Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, Pinde pindacha grasu to hya natha sanketacha damshu. Pinde pindacha grasu to ha natha sanketacha damshu. And pari dauni gela uddeshu Mahavishnu. Very beautiful. Somewhere in the 6th one, that is the main chapter of yoga. There Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, Pinde pindacha grasu तो हा नाद संकेताचा दंशु परी दावनी गेला उद्देशु महाविष्णू. So if we maintain physical and mental health, that is very essential to experience higher level of consciousness, then if we practice regular yoga, moral life, then we can raise ourselves to that level. So this is the great teaching of Gorakhnath in Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, Goraksha Shataka, and Gorak Vani. In all these books, we understand that. But it is not that simple. I may give a lecture for 1 hour, but it doesn't mean that I have attained it. It doesn't mean that I can attain it. No. Unless I sit in silence alone and practice that with all sincerity, it is not possible. Otherwise, it will become only a matter of lecture, a matter of academic interest. But yoga, unfortunately, is not just academic. It's not out of curiosity that we should share that sacred knowledge of Gorakhnath, etc. It is very, very, very serious and profound that we should remember always the sayings of Gorakhnath, that this is the body. We should make best use of this life. This is exactly what Abhinav Gupta says in Tantra Loka, a Kashmiri Shaivite of 10th century. He says in the Tantra Loka that this life is a means and a goal by itself. So that's why we cannot postpone everything. So with these words, in the sacred memory of the great spiritual teacher Yogi Gorakhnath, I conclude, and namaste to all of you. Namaste.
Thank you, Penna sir, for your beautiful journey into Natha tradition, and they're spread all over India and various locations as well as various cultures of India. How profoundly their tradition has been spread and accepted or even developed over a period of thousands of years. So on behalf of Jagdish sir's team at Swami Vivekananda, I would take this opportunity to heartily thank you for this beautiful discourse. And let us request for a few questions, sir.
Yeah, please.
Is it okay with you, sir? You have time?
Yeah, okay.
I know you're since morning you're busy with the lectures.
Yeah,
Yes.
Today I had 2 meetings with MIT, then evening lecture, and immediately I have come to this.
Yes.
No problem.
Okay.
Yes. Anybody
So we
with
will
any
have
questions?
2-3 questions maximum. Please.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Shrikant ji had raised the hand. Possibly
Yes.
we'll give him first.
Shrikant ji, namaste.
No, I think I just had a wonderful shravan of this lecture.
Shrikant
So
ji,
nicely you have said Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh all put together, and the physical body, the alchemy, everything put together. I think we had a different perspective of Gorakhnath from Penna sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Because we are all treading on the same path, so naturally we share the feelings that
Truly.
we have great respect for Gorakhnath, because the Bharat, what we find now, especially in the name of yoga, that the credit goes to Gorakhnath, because before Jnaneshwar Maharaj he was there.
Right.
So that,
And sir, as you rightly said, instead of going into the verbal discussions
exactly.
what we say, paksha and pratipaksha, it is
Right.
better to get the essence rather than getting into other
Absolutely.
Discussions.
take the nectar and leave the other things there.
Exactly.
And like you said, Advaita, Dvaita. I mean, what is the point in all these things? After all, it is just an understanding.
That is intellectual debate and some satisfaction that I have.
Yes.
वो PhD के लिए ठीक है sir.
बस. MPhil के लिए भी.
अभी बंद हो गया ना MPhil.
नहीं अभी है, कुछ साल है.
Yeah, Murdali madam, namaste. Murdali madam, namaste. She's from Gantali Mitra Mandal.
Mrudula
Namaste.
madam, yes ma'am.
Mrudula
मृदुला
ji.
चौधरी
Chaudhary,
नमस्ते.
yes,
Yes,
Chaudhary.
yeah, Chaudhary madam.
Sorry.
Yes ma'am.
मृदुला जी
तर फार
नमस्कार.
सुंदर लेक्चर झालं. इतकं छान तुम्ही ते नाथ कल्टचे सगळं बॅकग्राऊंड गोरक्षनाथांचं आणि इतकं सुरेख कोरिलेट केलं सगळं तुम्ही योगाशी आणि सगळ्या
धन्यवाद
गोष्टी.
madam. धन्यवाद me.
खूप छान खूप छान.
Anybody, any
भैयांना
questions,
पण
please?
धन्यवाद.
Quickly, we can go for a question session.
That
कोणाला
is
काही
a question.
प्रश्न विचारायचा आहे का?
So,
प्रश्न?
हा तोच
So-
क्वेश्चन आहे.
yeah,
Yes.
sir, namaste.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, I'm from Telangana. So, sir, I'm just started the studies.
తెలుగులో
So,
మాట్లాడతారేంటి?
uh, Telugu Rodu,
Okay, okay.
sir, Telugu
Okay,
Rodu.
okay. Please ask me. Continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yes. Sir, it's a very basic question that we get in the exam, that who found Nath cult? Matsyendranath or Gorakshnath?
Ha ha.
So what will be the exact answer?
Pardon me, ma'am.
The question.
Who founded Nath cult?
Yeah. So it is not Goraknath, Matsyendranath only. And Matsyendranath had Adinatha, that is Shankara. So that's why if somebody says Adinatha founded the cult, it is correct because Shankara. And in the human form, it is Matsyendranath.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And then your confusion is over for the net exam, I feel.
Acha.
Yes.
Yeah.
What to do, sir? Sometimes we have to also give particular answer.
Ah, exactly.
But the subject was excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else, please? Any questions?
So splendid.
Yeah, we can end the session otherwise with
Yes, sir.
3 Shanti mantras.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Gayatri ji, yes.
Yes, sir, Panna sir, namaskara.
Namaskar, ma'am.
Awesome lecture. I've been hearing your this one, and
Thank you, ma'am.
Gorakshanath. Actually, I have not got the history about Gorakshanath till now, but from your mouth, it was really, really wonderful to hear about the Gorakshanath parampara. But I would love to hear much more about the Natha tradition, much more, because the knowledge about the yoga, about the Gorakshanath and other things. If we can have one more lecture about